For thousands of years, survival in North America depended not on walls, weapons, or machines, but on knowledge. Indigenous peoples learned to survive by watching, remembering, and teaching. Every landscape was a library, and every generation added to its pages. Long before written language, Native Americans developed systems of understanding that allowed them to live in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. From early childhood, observation was a skill as important as strength. Children learned to recognize the difference between fresh and old tracks, to hear changes in bird calls, and to notice when the wind shifted direction. These were not small details. A sudden silence in the forest could signal danger. A change in animal behavior could predict a storm days in advance. Knowledge was survival, and mistakes were remembered. Hunting was never random. It was planned weeks, sometimes months ahead. Elders remembered where herds had moved in past years, which valleys filled with snow first, which rivers froze last. These memories guided decisions about when to move camps, when to hunt, and when to wait. Hunters rarely rushed. They understood that wasted energy could be as deadly as hunger. Patience was a tool sharpened over generations. Food gathering followed strict rules shaped by experience. Plants were harvested only at certain times when their nutrients were strongest. Roots were taken carefully so that they would grow again. Fishing spots were rotated to avoid depletion. These practices were not superstition. They were early forms of ecological management, refined through centuries of trial and consequence. Shelters reflected deep environmental understanding. Homes were built where wind patterns reduced heat loss, where snow drifted away instead of piling up, and where summer heat could escape. Materials were chosen not for appearance, but for performance. Bark, earth, hide, stone, and snow were all used differently depending on climate. Each design carried generations of testing behind it. Navigation relied on memory and landmarks rather than maps. Mountains, unusual trees, rock formations, and river bends became reference points in mental maps passed from elder to child. Night travel depended on stars, their positions remembered season by season. Losing direction was rare because the land itself was constantly red. Winter demanded the highest level of planning. Long before the first snowfall, food stores were checked, clothing repaired, tools sharpened. Hunters adjusted strategies, knowing animals moved slower but required more effort to reach. Travel routes changed, risk increased. Communities relied heavily on cooperation because isolation in winter often meant death. Storytelling played a critical role in survival. Stories were not simply entertainment. They contained warnings, instructions, and lessons encoded in memorable narratives. Tales of failed hunts explained what not to do. Stories of successful journeys preserved routes and strategies. Even myths often reflected real environmental dangers, such as floods, avalanches, or starvation. Animals were teachers as much as resources. Wolves demonstrated cooperation. Bears showed when to rest and conserve energy. Birds signaled seasonal change. By observing animals, Native Americans refined their own behavior. This constant learning created a dynamic relationship between people and nature where adaptation never stopped. When Europeans arrived, they brought new tools, animals, and ideas, but they also underestimated the sophistication of indigenous knowledge. Survival systems developed over thousands of years were dismissed because they were unwritten. Yet many newcomers relied on native guidance to survive winters, find food, and navigate unfamiliar terrain. Despite dramatic change, the foundation remained. Knowledge continued to pass from one generation to the next. Even today, traditional ecological understanding influences conservation, wildlife management, and sustainable living practices across North America. The story of Native Americans is not only one of endurance, but of intelligence shaped by environment. Their survival was built not on domination of nature, but on attention, memory, and respect. In a world without modern technology, they mastered something far more powerful: the ability to live by understanding the land itself.
Heavy. Now. Let's see.
Like this?
Slow. Feel grain. It breaks.
The cold will be sharp this year.
Good shelter. See how the weight shifts here.
The bear sleeps deep then, but the rabbit has quickness, but needs the soft snow to hide.
The stories say that in the deepest part of winter, the spirits listen closely to our words. The lodge fire keeps us warm, just as the old stories keep our spirits warm through the winter night. Do not stray far from the path when the snow lies deep. When the white wind comes, seek shelter always. In the time before this time, the wind carried the voices of the ancients across the frozen lake.
The wolves teach us patience. Never waste strength.
The hunter's path, always there.
the land awakens.
Ready the big sled.
They pass here, always.
Like this, see?
Doing so. And so the winter taught us patience.
See that peak? It tells us we are almost there.
Only take what you need, and always leave some for next year.
Welcome home, brothers. We waited for you.
Steady. Like this.
Fresh.
Shallow here.
This one, good for the stomach.
Remembers.